you say, everybody's concerned about their cholesterol because this is the message that has been hammered home for decades. And never mind that the original study that that recommendation was based on was actually biased, funded by the sugar industry, and basically was just fraudulent science. But we'll just continue on and see what we can see about this.
Well, we could talk a little bit more about how, that when they first created cholesterol lowering drugs, they actually were trying to find a function for it. And then they found in heart disease up in Boston, the Boston Medical, I don't remember what hospital it was, but it was in the 80s. And they literally found that everybody who had died had higher cholesterol of heart disease. And so they're like, oh my God, we're going to fix heart disease by this cholesterol lowering medication. Yeah. Hundreds, no, no, yeah, yeah. Hundreds of years later, 100 years later, we've got no real change in heart disease being the leading cause of death. So somewhere along the line, something's not working like it's supposed to. So here we go. Here's what we're going to learn today. Go, Claire.
That's right. Heart disease is unfortunately the number one killer of Americans, even though statin use has been on the rise for decades and really has done nothing to turn that trend around. But what has happened is that people can't even remember when they first got told about cholesterol being dangerous. It's just fully ingrained in our minds that if you have high cholesterol, that you're just going to get cardiovascular disease. But really what it is, the high cholesterol is more like the skid marks at an accident rather than the speeding car that crashes into you that causes the accident. So people can have high cholesterol and also have disease processes going on, but it's not the cholesterol that's causing the problem. The cholesterol is also a secondary effect of what was causing the inflammation to begin with, which could have been from multiple causes. So that's, the main gist of what we're going to go over today. So we're going to look at cholesterol particles more closely and understand that LDL has gotten this bad reputation of being the bad cholesterol, but it's not bad. It's a bad situation when you have too much because that means that you have too much inflammation. But you need an appropriate amount of LDL because it actually serves a purpose and is good for you. And nobody reading People magazine or Glamour magazine or Reader's Digest or whatever is ever getting that message. Even Prevention magazine, they just don't discuss it. Along the same lines, 200 is not a magic number because back in the 1970s, normal cholesterol was up around 300. And then once statins hit the market and these agencies realized what they could do to Americans' blood work, the recommendations got lower and lower. And so 200 is really kind of arbitrary. There have been many people for who knows how long who have lived long, healthy lives with good working brains and a good working heart and not having clogged arteries with cholesterol levels much higher than 200. Yes, you can be too high. Yes, you can have clogged arteries. Yes, you can need a quadruple bypass because you've got plaquing and everything building up. But we want you to be in the sweet spot, not too high, not too low, so that all of your functions can work. And then I'm also going to wrap this up with showing you some other tests where you can gauge your cardiovascular function, understand your inflammation better, and then really get an idea like if you fit this demographic of the person who really should be on a statin, because it's not a health food. It's not like everybody just needs to be on a statin. And I think that doctors need to be a little more specific and take a closer look at determining who this really is good for before just putting everybody right on it. Any questions about that?
Not for me. I love it. Oh, and by the way, it's just the two of us today because we have a couple. It's summertime and we've had some people out of town. So
Yeah.
just you and me, buddy. So we're good. We're
I
good.
know the office is very quiet right now.
Well, right now, it was not earlier today, by golly. Jeez,
Yes.
running all
Okay.
over.
Yes. So this is a look at the basic lipid panel. So most people are getting a basic lipid panel with their regular yearly checkup. Okay. We like, as functional chiropractors, nutritionists, whatever, we like to look at things in relation to each other. We're always looking at the patterns. One number on its own doesn't really mean anything. And so a lot of people, get in their mind, oh, I have a total cholesterol level of 250. I'm really in trouble. Or my cholesterol is whatever. Well, the truth is that your total cholesterol level goes up and down multiple times a day according to what you eat, because the dietary fats and proteins that you eat have a small effect on your cholesterol. And your cholesterol level also goes up and down in accordance with your stress and in accordance with infections. So when you get sick, your cholesterol level goes up. There's like all these different things that can make it change. It's not a static number. So, um,
Exercise, all those things can cause it to go up. Yeah.
yes, that's right. So let's say you go and you compete at a track meet and you wind up running, 12 miles through the course of the weekend. Your whole body is going to be inflamed. And if you did blood work on Monday morning, you would see your cholesterol level higher than normal, because the basic general function of cholesterol is to patch inflammation in the body. So when you are inflamed from any of these reasons that I've written here on the left-hand side, when you are inflamed, your cholesterol level is expected to go up. And that is a normal, healthy process that your body needs. The number one reason why people get in trouble and they get stuck in this high cholesterol state is because of their blood sugar imbalances, and they're provoking too much insulin from their meals and their snacks on a regular basis. This is the problem in America, and that's why I highlighted this in yellow. But other causes of issues with your lipids would be chronic inflammation, infections, stress, omega-3 fatty acid depletion. Let's say if you're eating out in restaurants too often, you're getting way too much canola oil and vegetable oil, and that displaces your omega-3s. It's not healthy. If you're eating too many carbohydrates, that can cause inflammation. If your liver is sluggish in function and you can't break down your fats, maybe you're constipated, and maybe you also have high cholesterol. If you've had a major weight loss, let's say you've been on a GLP-1 and you've dropped 30 pounds in a month. Well, guess what happens when you release fat? It releases toxins into circulation. And yes, you become a smaller person on the GLP-1, but you often also become a lot more concentrated in toxins. That
Right.
increases your inflammation and can increase your cholesterol.
And I agree with that because that's what ends up happening, right? They are having tissue breakdown.
Yeah,
They're not able to absorb and use the nutrients. And
yeah,
so this tissue breakdown causes an inflammatory response inside that gut and digestive system. And
that's
the
right.
body's only attack or to mount that to help support it is to create more cholesterol.
Yeah. On t-
Yeah.
on on top of that, if you are hypothyroid and your thyroid hormones are not optimized yet, you will naturally have higher cholesterol. And if you are entering into menopause and your sex hormone levels have gone down and you have not optimized them, your cholesterol is going to go up, because your body is going to start producing more of that foundational substrate that your body uses to create these hormones. I mentioned about the physical activity. Also, if you have been drinking too much alcohol, that's going to increase inflammation, makes your cholesterol go up. If you're not good at hydrating yourself, the same. And then, of course, your genetics also play a part. This is called familial hypercholesterolemia, when everybody in your family just tends to have high cholesterol. But then, of course, we also want to make sure, like, is everybody in your family actually eating a healthy diet? Is everyone in your family actually, working out in a healthy way and taking care of themselves? Because sometimes families can just exhibit the same patterns. It may not always be that your genetics have destined you to this level of lipid dysfunction. So let's take a look at these are just some rules of thumb that I like to follow. Total cholesterol level, I'm happy to see if somebody is anywhere in between 180 to 220. I would say at the extremes, I would get worried if somebody is less than 150. I would be alarmed if someone was less than 120. That's what
Yeah,
the research
130
shows.
even 130
Yeah,
even is really
yeah.
low.
People,
Yeah.
things get very risky when you get down in the 120 to 130 zone. And then if you're up above 250, that's going to get my attention, but I'm not going to be super concerned unless total cholesterol is maybe above
Claire, we
280.
got a special guest here real quick.
Oh,
Just wants to
hey.
say hello. Look at this. There
Hi,
she is.
Tracy.
Yeah,
The
Nice to
celebrity of
have
our
you here.
office,
I get
Tracy
flagged.
Fricano. Yeah, look at here we go.
Yes.
You have,
Okay,
you have any,
perfect.
any any tidbits you want to add about cholesterol, Tracy?
Oh,
Just listen to us. I'm just kidding.
yeah, listen to them and don't listen to your doctor that says 200's a bad number.
Okay, great. All right, so continuing on, if you've got your blood work out and you're just following along side by side, let's take a look at the breakdown of the other numbers. So your HDL, that's what they call the good cholesterol. No, it's a good situation if you have plenty of HDL. That's what we want for you, and we want it to be more than 55. All right. LDLs, we want this to be about 100 points less than your total cholesterol. So if your total cholesterol is at 240, we want your LDL to be around 140. That would be appropriate. And it's going to be flagged on your blood work because they tend to think anything above 100, is bad, but it's not. We just want it to be in good relation to the total. Then your triglycerides. Your triglycerides are directly representative of how your body is handling carbohydrates. Statin drugs do not have an effect on the triglycerides. And it's important that we see that your triglycerides are 50% of the total or less. That would be a good sign that your body is handling the types of carbohydrates that you have coming in properly. Then, if we look at the VLDL, so what that means is very low density lipoprotein. Okay, so I'm sorry, I meant to say earlier,
Yeah.
HDL means high density lipoprotein. The LDL is low density lipoprotein, and the VLDL is very low density lipoprotein. Okay, and so the VLDLs they are responsible for carrying the triglycerides around in circulation. And that once they drop off the triglycerides, they sort of transform and they turn into LDLs. They can also turn into small, dense LDLs, which are actually the portion of LDLs that are the more dangerous ones. So, within this group of LDLs, you can have some that are like big bouncy beach balls that are not dangerous at all. And you can also have small, dense LDLs that are like bullet size, and they tend to circulate longer and they tend to hit the arterial wall harder, and they are more associated with plaquing. All right. And it's the VLDLs that potentially can turn into the small, dense LDLs. Now, your basic lipid panel does not count or call out the small, dense LDLs. That's why we feel, most functional practitioners feel, that the basic lipid panel is inadequate for assessing cardiovascular risk and the lipid profile. There is another test that I'm going to get into a little bit more later. It's called the NMR. At LabCorp, that's what they call it, the NMR, detailed cholesterol analysis. And if you're getting labs done at Quest, it's called Cardio IQ. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's a lot more informative. And in that test, they tell you if you have the small, dense LDL particles that are more dangerous. But on this basic lipid panel, they will simply say non-HDL cholesterol. So this is basically just math. They take the total cholesterol, they take your HDLs, they divide your triglycerides by 5, and they subtract those, and they come up with what is called non-HDL cholesterol, and we like those to be nice and low. Now, we have two ratios that we like to double check. You've got your triglyceride to HDL ratio. That's very important. So you take your triglycerides on top divided by your HDLs, and you want that quotient to be less than 3.5. And then, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. You want to take your total cholesterol, divide it by the HDL. That is the ratio you want to be less than 3.5. The lower, the better. The triglyceride to HDL ratio, that's the TG to HDL ratio. This is also very important. You want that ratio to be less than 2, preferably less than 1. It's just, do you want to be an A+ student or do you want to be a B student? Okay, either one's good. So these are the things that I look at with the basic panel. Any questions?
I'm good.
Okay. Did you want
No,
to
I
add
like it. I mean,
anything?
that's exactly it. And like you said, it's better or best. I mean, you're really trying to keep it at a certain level. If it's above any of those things, then we're looking somewhere along the lines to finding some sort of inflammatory burden that your body's going through.
Yeah,
And it's mostly coming from poisons, toxins, poisons from the food, toxins from the environment, things like that that you're being
chemicals.
exposed to. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so how prediabetes impacts your cholesterol level. So how do you get prediabetes?
These are
Bob,
great slides, by the way.
do you like it?
Yeah.
And by the way, I have to tell you, none of this entire presentation was
Oh,
done with AI because on YouTube, we have to press a button if there was any part of it. And if
no.
slides are created using AI, then we have to click that button, but not today.
Listen, don't judge, but yes, there's a couple of us guys that do that. It's so much easier. But this is well done and put some effort into. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so if you can see the sequence here, starting at the green and continuing over to the right and then down to the left towards the darker red. First, you eat carbohydrates, and then that creates a glucose spike in the body, and then your pancreas secretes insulin to bring your glucose down. That's normal eating and living. But if you're eating too many carbohydrates and you don't have enough muscle mass and you don't have enough activity in your daily life, eventually the cells can become less responsive to insulin, and you can start building inflammation, and your A1C can start going up, and you can start putting on weight. And these are the things that people notice when you start becoming pre-diabetic. And I would say probably 2/3 of the country are pre-diabetic, whether they know it or not. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a huge problem in America. So, what happens when your cells become less responsive to insulin? Then your muscles can't absorb that glucose, and so they can't produce as much energy. So, you're tired all the time and you're gaining weight. And then the liver starts packing away the excess carbohydrates and glucose in the liver, and it releases more free fatty acids. That's another test that can be checked in the blood, which is not hardly ever done. But it is an indication of growing inflammation. And then also, what's happening there is your liver takes the excess triglycerides and packages it up into the VLDLs. So you may see your VLDL go up. And then the way that your VLDLs are working in the body, potentially they could be making small, dense LDLs if that's the way you're genetically programmed to build cholesterol, and you don't know if you don't test. So over time, let's say if you're also you're not getting enough omega-3 fatty acids and you're getting too much omega-6s from the restaurants, your HDL tends to drop. You start not getting as much of the good beneficial anti-inflammatory actions of the HDL, and then your LDLs start going up, your fasting insulin goes up, your oxidative stress goes up. That's another thing that can be measured in the blood work, but they never do unless you're working with a functional provider. And the cycle just goes on, and you just continue gaining weight. So it's a slow, gradual progression all along the way, and your lipids could either look perfect and have like really nice patterns, everything looking really good in relation to each other, or you could be having some of these poor ratios, and yet maybe your doctor is not calling attention to it, or maybe doesn't even really realize that this process is going on, but it's all connected. Would you add anything there?
No, I think that's perfect. I mean, that's literally what's going on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's happening, like you said, to so many people. You don't even
Yes,
realize it. And the diet is probably one of the biggest factors.
for sure. So cholesterol is good for you. We don't need to be scared of it. Benefits of HDL, I listed just a few things here. It carries cholesterol from anywhere in the body where it is working on patching inflammation and carries it back to the liver to be recycled. So, cholesterol, if you can imagine it as just like a waxy substance that your body uses to create healing, it has to get shuttled out to the body in a taxi cab, and it has to get shuttled back to the liver in a different taxi cab. So the HDLs are the taxi cabs that are bringing the cholesterol back after they've been used so that they can be fixed up and recycled and used again. On the other side, the LDL particles carry the cholesterol from the liver out into the body to patch the inflammation. So if your tissues are very inflamed and your body is on fire, that's a bad situation and you're going to have more LDLs. That's why it got the reputation as bad. Other things that the HDL does for you, as I mentioned earlier, it acts as a substrate for hormone production, whether it's cortisol or DHEA or progesterone or estradiol or testosterone or any number of 100 other different hormones in the body. Cholesterol is what you need to create all of
Mhm.
them. It protects and maintains the myelin sheath. So if you've been having neuropathy, nerve pain, tingling, numbness, multiple sclerosis, all of these things are related to the insulation or the myelin sheath around your nerves. HDL supports your brain function, helps you think, protects your memory, reduces inflammation, lowers your oxidative stress, which is basically like cellular rusting from the inside out, and it supports immune activity. And in fact, when I was like brushing up on all my information for this, I actually found a study where they infused HDLs to a person or to people who had metabolic diseases and saw improvements in other functions of the body just by adding it in. So, on the other hand, good things that the LDL particles do for you, they are involved in immune system function. So, they help your white blood cells to capture foreign invaders, whether it's bacteria or viruses. And it binds and neutralizes bacterial toxins in the bloodstream so they can be flushed out.
Can I make another point too? Right. So
Yes?
keep that on that same spot there real quick. It's actually a good one.
Oh, wait, sorry. Let me see. There we go.
Okay. Yeah. So, and remember that HDL is usually the low one. And the HDL is because it's carrying back the cholesterol to the liver to be stored. And if there's inflammatory responses, you're using up all that cholesterol, so you're not sending much back. Okay. So I want to be aware of that. And the LDL, which is the number that's elevated that they're always worried about, the bad cholesterol, Do you know that that LDL, that bad cholesterol, which you already listed some things, also carries your vitamin A? How important is that?
Oh,
Also
yes.
carries your CoQ10, or helps create CoQ10. Then also carries your vitamin E, which is also really good for selenium and your heart health. Like,
Yeah.
you have to understand, if we lower these numbers, are those same trucks going out and distributing all of those vitamins to the rest of the tissue?
No, and I
So
should
it's
have added that. I will fix this slide for the next
no,
time we do this presentation.
no,
Vitamin
it's okay.
A, D, E, and K,
Right. Well, yeah.
and
So
CoQ10.
yeah, but that's what's brilliant about this, right? So it's literally helping. And how many people have low D in our society?
Everybody.
Right? And but do we even connect that to the total cholesterol
No.
number? No. And I guarantee you, if you looked at, if they did some studies on this, you'd also see then low D is immune, low D is also going to be Alzheimer's and dementia. Like these, all these things are showing up, that here we are lathering our bodies with sunscreen and avoiding the sun and everything else, and we're taking statins. It doesn't set us up for health, success, and vitality. And
Right.
that's just one of the biggest things I wanted to bring up. And I want to talk about a little bit about how, like, even when it comes to that cholesterol and you're breaking down tissue, you create these foam cells. That's what, and then they put calcium in there. So this is that plaquing. Well, if you don't have enough cholesterol in there to fix that, that's literally what it's doing, trying to fix it. That creates more plaquing. It's not that the cholesterol is high. Claire, great analogy. It's almost like saying, I'll use a different one too, blaming the fire trucks for a house fire. Because
For
every
being
time you see a
present.
house fire,
Yes.
you see fire trucks there. Well, it's got to be the fire trucks causing the problem. No, no. They're there in response. Same idea with cholesterol. So, anyway, move to the next slide because I love what you're going to next. And I just want
Okay.
to go over that because we just want to add a couple of those things on there for us.
Thanks. Okay, so here's where I just wanted to illustrate many of the hormones. These are not all of your body's hormones. These are just some of the most popular ones that we refer to when we're trying to balance sex hormones and talk about the stress response and things like that. So your cholesterol, as I mentioned, cholesterol is at the top of the page in yellow here. Here's cholesterol. That's the first main foundational substrate. And then the first hormone that is created from that is pregnenolone.
So,
That
hang on, Claire, real quick. So, you mean to start all of the hormonal process, you need
everything.
what?
Cholesterol.
Yeah. Like that is so valuable to just hear that.
Yes.
That's the one thing you need to pay attention to create all of your hormones. And
Yeah.
cholesterol can come from your diet, correct? It can, right? It's going to come from the eggs, the meat, the certain foods that you're putting in.
But
But
it
your
only
body,
makes up about 25%
right?
representation of what you're measuring in the blood.
And the sad truth is are you eating a Paleolithic hunter gatherer diet, or are you eating more of the American carbohydrate, food lot type of diet? So
Yeah.
this is the idea. And then your body is what's, as you said, 20%. So 80% is being created by the cells and tissue and organs
In
in
your
your
liver.
body to create this
Yes.
because it's so important. I just want to
Okay.
get that across. Go ahead.
So I'm not going to go through all of these different things, but I just wanted to
Mhm.
point out after pregnenolone, then over here to the left, this is where your progesterone gets made, and then that gets turned into the 17-OH progesterone, and then that goes on to make the rest of these hormones that are off to the right-hand side. You can see here's your testosterone. Lots of people are, using testosterone pellets and injecting, but are they depleting their cholesterol in the first place with a statin and then
Right.
wondering why they don't have enough testosterone in green over here? And then look what happens. Your body creates your estradiol that people are using, right? It comes from your testosterone through a conversion process called aromatase. And then so all of your purple estrogens down here at the bottom, you're going to be lacking in estrogen if you're depleted in cholesterol. And now let's look. So when we talk about the stress response, we often talk about cortisol. Your cortisol that gives you energy so that you can get up and run or fight and you can get fuel to your muscles. It is made from the 17-OH progesterone that comes from your regular progesterone, that comes from your pregnenolone, and originated with your cholesterol. So if you're very depleted, how much energy do you think you're going to have? Are you going to be able to run away? Are you going to be able to have energy and fight? And
And
guess what else cortisol does? It manages your blood sugar.
yeah, but I'm just saying, and think about this too, right? We're under that high stress. Guess what your body's doing? Is it going to go to any other pathways, or is it going to stay on the cortisol area? So you're under this high stress because you got parenting, family, your aging family, your the stress that you've been taught to deal with as a little kid. You always have this stress now. You're not creating any of the other stuff over there on the other side of this slide if you're only creating stress response, cortisol, stress,
That's right.
running, fighting, biking, whatever, right?
There's only so much material in the pot, and all of
Yeah.
your hormones have to come
Yeah.
from that one pot. And so if all of your cholesterol, energy, hormone is getting spent on your cortisol because you're super stressed and you're running yourself into the ground, what do you think is going to happen to your sex hormones? They're all going to be depleted. Okay,
Yep.
so I know that might be a confusing looking slide, but I hope that just that brief explanation is helpful.
I think it was great, honestly, and it's great to kind of take that second. Oh, goodness gracious, it's close to lunch.
Yeah. Okay, so these are the early danger signs that you really need to be paying attention to. We don't need to worry about the total cholesterol level. I want you to be conscious of the triglycerides because these go up when directly in proportion to how much carbohydrate you're eating. Yes, the bread, the pasta, the potatoes, and the rice, but also the bourbon. Bourbon has more sugar than any other kind of liquor. And if you have a glass of bourbon the night before you go get your blood work done, your lipids are going to look like crap. We've seen it. Shockingly terrible. Okay. Um, so triglycerides are the most common type of fat. Your body takes excess sugar that it can't deal with and turns it into triglyceride fat. When these are consistently high, it is definitely a major risk factor for cardiovascular disease. This is something that we don't minimize or dismiss. We pay a lot of attention to this. If your triglycerides stay high for a long time, that can turn into insulin resistance, which means pre-diabetes and then diabetes. And then eventually, if you've been diabetic for a long time, why is that a terrible thing? Because you're at risk of losing your sight, you're at risk of losing your kidney function. You're at risk of losing circulation to your feet. So many terrible things can come from it. So when you start seeing high triglycerides, this is an early warning sign that you can take steps to turn around at the beginning when it's easy. Extremely high triglycerides can also cause acute inflammation of the pancreas. That's a bad situation.
Yeah.
And then again, as I mentioned before, you want your triglyceride to HDL ratio less than 2.0, preferably around 1.0. And the VLDLs, we went over this earlier, but I'll just quickly say again, it transports triglycerides and cholesterol all around. And then after it does that job, it transforms into the regular LDLs and sometimes can transform into the small, dense LDLs that are the ones that are the most dangerous. And they are the ones involved in atherosclerosis and plaquing. Okay. So I like this little visual here. When you see the yellow fatty plaque, um, that's what people are envisioning, when you have high cholesterol. And of course, we want to prevent it because the more of that fatty plaque you have building up in the arterial walls, it narrows the channel. And so it increases the blood pressure and potentially one day could form a clot. I mean, this is why, high cholesterol potentially can be a really bad thing. But just because your number is high doesn't necessarily mean that you have plaquing and clogging going on. Ideally, you want your inflammation low so that the interior of your blood vessels is slick and smooth. And your everything flowing through your bloodstream should be just like kids going down a slip and slide. even if there are a whole lot of kids. That's just more fun. So, I mentioned before different things that can cause your cholesterol to go too high. It could be genetic, maybe. It could also be if you've just gone through an illness or if you have something chronic going on. Definitely it goes up when you're pregnant, but only to a certain point. So the normal reference range for pregnancy is just higher than normal. If you have blood sugar issues, cholesterol goes up. If your kidneys are in trouble, yes, it goes up. If you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, if you're hypothyroid, and if you have low sex hormones. So the things that we often recommend to people to get your cholesterol in a better balance, cut out the processed foods. We want everyone to start counting chemicals, not really counting calories. We want you to eat more wholesome foods that come from the produce section because they have the naturally occurring fiber that acts like a broom and it sweeps cholesterol and toxins out through the colon. So that's how I want you to think about like your broccoli and your lettuces and everything else from the produce section. Those raw veggies are sweeping these excess fats out through your colon.
And remember, there's also minerals involved with those foods, right? These are
Mhm.
carrying magnesium, they're carrying other trace minerals that your body needs that we are so depleted in on a regular basis. So the more you eat of them, the more they help with those vitamins and minerals have to work together to be utilized properly. And that's where
Right.
I want you guys also to hear that too. So
Yes, yes.
another reason
So
why we're eating
then
those wholesome foods.
another good recommendation for anyone who is inflamed, a high quality fish oil, not not the kind that's cheap and it comes in a huge tub from a big box store. Um, those are generally very low quality fish oils and they often smell fishy. That means the oil is rancid and it's not going to be anti-inflammatory for you. So, high quality fish oil, we've probably got 5 or 6 here that we recommend, plus turmeric. That's the number one combination for systemic inflammation and can help everyone with high cholesterol. Of course, we have a few other things that are a little more specialty. Red yeast rice has an anti-inflammatory action very similar to a statin. Berberine is antimicrobial and it's good for blood sugar balance, so we love using that one. Also, garlic, fantastic for the cardiovascular system and also has antimicrobial properties. And cinnamon, so very good for blood sugar, very good for inflammation. So we do have a variety of things here that we'll recommend from time to time. We also recommend that people do a liver cleanse. So we offer a 21-day group cleanse every year. And once somebody goes through that with us as a group and they understand like the guidelines, then you're welcome to do a liver cleanse any other time during the year on your own. Super fun. And then, of course, you want to fix any kind of hormonal deficiencies, figure out, does your thyroid need help? Do your sex hormones need help? Because that's going to help your lipids look much, much better when you don't have that kind of underlying inflammation. Okay, so here's an unusual thought. When your cholesterol is too low, if your total cholesterol is less than 116 and your LDLs are less than 50, some cardiologists might be like jumping for joy. But that is putting you at greater risk for a lot of problems. I mean, sometimes this could be the result of an underlying problem, or sometimes it's really just the result of aggressive statins and then putting you at risk for other associated issues. So some people are born with this. For some people, genetically, they just have a hard time producing cholesterol. So that's its own set of issues. You could potentially have liver congestion, like let's say if you've been exposed to toxins and your liver has just gotten gunked up, for lack of a better word. If you're having liver dysfunction or liver cancer, or if you got something viral going on in the liver that's preventing good function, it could impair your ability to create cholesterol.
Hey Claire, what if you just work in a chemical factory, you work in a bad, like on a golf course? I mean, there's other things that you could be exposed to.
Mhm.
Chemical
Mhm.
toxins that you're exposed to on a regular basis could also elevate
Mhm.
your cholesterol. Okay. So like you got to remember this environment that we
Yeah,
are already in. It's like taking me and putting me in at the beach, or taking me and putting me in the Arctic, or taking me and putting me somewhere like 1,000, miles under the sea. Like you understand that this environment my body is responding to. So know that that's why your cholesterol is not just a number. It's a response to that environmental stimuli that's happening that you're dealing with. Also what you're putting
right.
into. So
Right. And that's why we try to put everything in context. We don't just react and treat numbers. We want to understand, what were you doing in the week before you had your blood work done? Like, is this a true value that I can trust, or was there something that you did the night before that influenced these numbers? Um, did you go to Waffle House? Did you have a bunch of like really bad fats in your system when you went? Have you been very constipated? That would be an indicator of lack of bile flow. Do you have gut dysbiosis and you're malnourished? Potentially that could impair your liver's ability to produce this. Also, if you have hyperthyroidism, those people tend to have lower cholesterol. If you have Addison's disease, that also affects the liver in a way that it impairs your ability to produce cholesterol. And so for Addison's, they will often need to have lanolin applied topically to the skin to give another form of fat that the body can use. If you have kidney failure or issues with your pancreas, that can impact your cholesterol level, and then also cancer. So people fighting cancer often have very low cholesterol levels. So what would we do for this? Well, it depends the way that you answer those questions. If you're on medication, we would suggest that you have a conversation with your doctor about, is this the most appropriate statin for me? Or, do I need to be on both Repatha shots and a statin? Or,
yeah.
maybe there's a dosage that needs to be adjusted. We can't comment on that. We are not medical doctors. We have nothing to do with that. All we can do is maybe point your attention to it and suggest that you have a conversation with your doctor.
Then the key to that is just having a conversation is an exit strategy to get off your medication. Because once you start a medication, Claire, when do they stop it?
Usually never.
Right. And then what ends up happening, your body acclimates to the drug that you're on, and you keep eating like crap, sorry, and your system then keeps breaking down. And then they go, this drug's not working. So we got to give you another drug that's stronger on top of the one you're already given.
Yeah.
And so, in other words, you're either going to stay on the same drug forever, or they're going to give you a stronger drug, but you never change the lifestyle, which is literally what's causing and creating the problem in the first
Yeah.
place.
And so, like, if you're never addressing the root cause of why your lipids are reacting in the way that they are, then what's it going to do over time? It's just going to
Yeah.
get worse.
And
So,
that's where asking for an exit strategy with them. I just want you guys to remember that if you ever, you don't talk to us ever, you just want to talk to your doctor about an exit strategy on how to get off of or how to change so I can make these,
yes. So, if we saw someone who had super low cholesterol, we would be real suspicious that they may also be low in their fat soluble vitamins, because they won't have enough of these taxi cabs to distribute the vitamin A that's antiviral and that's good for your eyes, or the D that everyone needs to keep their immune system up, or the vitamin E that's really good for your heart in the first place, or the vitamin K that helps to direct where to send calcium to your bones.
so think
Right?
about this. What would be a big condition or something that you would look for to think that you had a skin, or sorry, that you had low fats? It would be something in your skin,
Yeah.
right? That's what you're looking for, right? So with adequate fats and good fat soluble vitamins, you're going to actually not burn as bad. You're going to actually not have certain bumps or measles or not measles, but like psoriasis or eczema or whatever on the skin. If you have
Mhm.
those type of conditions, you already know that your fat metabolism is going to be a little bit low.
Right, right. And we know that vitamin A and vitamin D are both super helpful in that condition too.
Rebuilding. Yep.
Right.
Tissue.
Okay. So aside from that, ways that you can get more of those good fat soluble vitamins in, it would be eggs, liver, butter, and full fat dairy. You know, the high fat cottage cheese, the raw milk straight from the farm, all those things that people have lived on for many thousands of years.
Yeah, biblically, right? They've been around
Yes.
forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's something that is very rare, but I thought it was interesting that children can have low cholesterol. And like they never even really get their cholesterol checked. But um, your brain produces its own supply of cholesterol. And for some people, genetically, they're just not very good at doing that. Well, look at some of the effects that children would have if they're low in their cholesterol overall. More anxiety, poor emotional regulation, fatigue, neurological vulnerability to neurological issues, immune dysfunction, and hormone balance. So today's children are sicker than they've ever been, and they are exhibiting all of these issues. So I think it deserves more attention, and I just wanted to bring a little awareness to that. Okay.
And that's also like these kids, right? They're growing up in a lifestyle that's maybe they're stressed, maybe there's other things, there's relationship issues. The diet is really bad. I mean, these things are all can be changed without having to use drugs and medications and things like that.
Mm-hmm. You know, so looking, oh, sorry. Wait, go back. Oh, here we go. Going back to this slide, I need to add in another slide, low cholesterol in old people, in elderly. What kinds
Yeah.
of issues do you think they would have?
Oh, I mean, yeah, dementia, Alzheimer's. I mean, all these different things, and they can have skin, easy thin skin, things like that too. That's
Hmm.
going to be very obvious to them.
Yep,
Um, circulatory issues. Yeah, there's a bunch of things. And
totally.
remember, your digestive system's going what as you age? It's going down, so it's not going to be as adequate. This is where vitamins and nutrition, apple cider vinegar, whatever to help your body break down the proteins and stuff that you're putting in. So
Yes. So this slide is just to reiterate, these are some of the natural interventions that we would recommend for someone to balance out their cholesterol levels naturally. We want to make sure that you're eating a balanced diet with lots of foods from the produce section, all organic as much as possible so that you can avoid the chemicals. Avoiding the junk processed foods because that's where we have the majority of our chemicals coming from. We want to get good exercise. Exercise helps to keep your HDLs nice and high. And we want to get enough sleep because that's when you're in growth and repair mode. And also want to mitigate your stress by doing, nice restful activities, not overtraining or overstressing yourself, but doing things that you enjoy in life. And then here down at the bottom, I have a list of some key vitamins that we like to use here in the office when somebody needs some extra help trying to get their cholesterol levels in line. Okay, so maybe, maybe somebody has been looking at their basic blood work and now they're interested because I said, oh, you could look deeper. You could understand if you really do have a higher cholesterol risk, and you could look at other things in your blood besides just basic cholesterol. So, what are those? If you're curious to know, do I have too many small, dense, dangerous LDL particles that I've been talking about? We would want to order the NMR detailed cholesterol analysis from LabCorp, or if you like to go to Quest, it's called Cardio IQ. So it's a little more expensive than the basic test, but it's not cost prohibitive. We order it all the time. If you're curious, do I have calcified plaque that has been accumulating over time? There's not really a blood test that's going to answer that question, but you can do a scan. It's like an MRI. It's a coronary artery calcium score test. It's a scan. And so they're taking a measurement at different parts of the heart and looking to see if you do have hard calcified plaque building up. There is another scan that's called Clearly. where they can look at the soft plaque. But that test involves using some kind of a contrast that is a chemical and potentially has its own kind of risk. But anyway, the CAC score, or the calcium score test, it's commonly called, usually is $100 or less, and it's a really good thing to check. If you're considering maybe getting on a statin because you're curious if you have this atherogenic cardiovascular disease risk and you want to know, a good number to check is the ApoB. That's an abbreviation for apolipoprotein B. And it's not expensive. We order it all the time. You can modify that number with diet and lifestyle, so it's good to check it and then recheck it a few months later to see if what you're doing is making a difference. You can also check to see if you are rusting from the inside out. That is oxidized LDL. And you can also check something called myeloperoxidase. It's abbreviated as MPO. And the reason you would run that test would be to see, is it an immune system dysfunction that is provoking my oxidative stress? And then another marker, if you want to see if you have active inflammatory activity, like your plaque is really increasing and growing, that is an Lp(PLA2) test. So if you've got a lot of cardiovascular risk in your family, you do not want to be satisfied with just doing a basic lipid panel.
No.
All of these different markers can tell you different things on top of the other blood sugar tests that I mentioned to you earlier. Lots of different things we can do. And here's a list of a few more things. So I mentioned the NMR, and then LP little a. This is lipoprotein little a. This is a marker that is tied to your genetics. So you can check it just once in your life, and you'll see what your genetic risk of cardiovascular disease is. It goes hand in hand with the ApoB. ApoB is more modifiable, and so that's the one that I prefer to check. Like if I saw that my LPA was high, well, that might just make me feel bad, and there's not a whole lot I can do about it. So what's the point? I just want to know about the things that I can control, and I can get a baseline and try some different things and see if they get better. So I like to check the ApoB personally. Oxidized LDL, that's very important. Homocysteine, I check this all the time on people because the medical doctors generally are not. And if your homocysteine is high, then that is a good measurement that indicates if you need more methyl donors, more choline, more beets, things that run your methylation cycle. So genetically speaking, if you have MTHFR mutations, then you're going to be what's called a poor methylator. And it just means that one of those detox pathways in your liver is having a hard time at converting folic acid into folate that your body can use to remove toxins. And if your homocysteine goes high, that is a bad indicator that you're experiencing some inflammation that can damage the inner lining of your blood vessels. And eventually, over time, it could lead to cognitive decline. It can be involved in dementia. It can be involved in high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, any disease that is involved with the action and function of your arterial walls, easy bruising and bleeding, breakage of blood vessels, stroke, anything that weakens your capillaries and blood vessels potentially may be tied to homocysteine. So that's why I frequently run that one. Then there's creatine kinase. Again, this is very affordable. Creatine kinase is kind of a temporary marker of muscle inflammation. You can have high creatine kinase as a total marker, and then there's MB, MM, and I think BB is the other one. So you can have inflammation coming from the brain, inflammation coming from the muscles, skeletal muscles, and inflammation coming from the heart. And so I generally will run total and MB to look at the cardiovascular side of it. Here we've got high sensitivity C-reactive protein. Then I mentioned the calcium score test. I mentioned the myeloperoxidase and the Lp(PLA2). And then troponin, that is a marker of cardiovascular inflammation that if you've been having heart pain, having heart palpitations, worried that you might be going down the road of a heart attack or something, I might look at troponin and also BNP. So when your BNP enzyme goes high, I mean, either one of these enzymes, when those go high, that's a sign that your heart is actually under stress and you probably need to get yourself to the doctor right away.
Right.
So, um, so if you do the NMR test, and we order this frequently for people, this is the test that helps you tell if you have the bullet-sized LDL particles or do you have the beach ball size particles. The small dense LDLs are more atherogenic than the larger buoyant LDLs. That means that they are more prone to causing cardiovascular disease. The small dense LDLs don't stick to the LDL receptors as well, and that means that they float around in your bloodstream, banging into the arterial walls for a longer period of time. So they can be more damaging to the inner lining of your arteries. They also have greater susceptibility to oxidation. That's the rusting from the inside out. And they have an increased affinity for the proteins that are on the arterial wall. So that means that they can stick to the inner lining of the arteries more than the big bouncy beach ball LDLs. For those reasons, that's why they're more associated with cardiovascular disease. That's why we like to check them.
Right.
Okay, so after all that, you may think, I mean, we're not trying to say that nobody should be on a statin. Some people do have a lot of risk. So who are the people that we would be happy to see them get on a statin as long as it's managed appropriately and their levels don't go too low? It would be someone who has already had a heart attack or stroke or already has some known plaquing, somebody who has diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2, commonly in middle age, and commonly, occurring with high blood pressure, smoking, or kidney disease. If somebody has very high LDL cholesterol, they probably need a statin for at least a short period of time until they can get their lifestyle and their diet under control and get out of this crisis situation. It could be somebody who has the small, dense LDLs and has been trying to get their diet and lifestyle under control, and they're just being really stubborn. So there's nothing wrong with trying a few months of a statin and seeing how your body responds. We just want you to have this awareness that there's a lot more that you can do. And just because you happen to see high LDLs once or twice on a basic blood work panel, that doesn't mean that you should jump straight to a medication if you haven't tried to change your diet or lifestyle and haven't checked out any of these other lab tests. And so I did want to mention that ApoB is preferred by the Heart Association societies as the predictor of cardiovascular disease more than the small dense LDLs. But for us, we like to look at both so that we're not missing anything and so we get a clearer picture of what's going on with you. And that is that.
Wow.
Right.
A lot.
Okay. I know it was a lot. Sorry.
No, it's not, but it's good though. I mean, it's good information. This was there's a lot to it, and you really, I mean, none of this stuff is taboo to talk about. All this stuff makes perfect sense. There's a lot of studies and research out there now that's all validating everything you just put on there. They're pushing more and more now to verify and validate the reasons why people are on statins. So yeah, I think it's great, Claire. And by the way, yeah, great job with the slides, great job with the information. Um, I just think the takeaway would be pay attention to your numbers. If you're on a statin and you want to try it and help lower the cholesterol levels, great. Go ahead and do it, but there needs to be an exit strategy. Do not do this long term. Reevaluate, check your liver enzymes. I don't think you mentioned that in there. Check the liver enzymes that you're in there with your blood work, because if you're taking a statin, you're destroying your liver. If you're destroying your liver, it will break down. Those liver enzymes will be monitored. If they start to get out of, out of balance, now you're pushing too hard. And without a liver, you're not really doing very well. Got it? You're not going to do very well at all. And so, yeah, I would just talk. This is also why they run and check your liver every 6 months, just to make
Yeah.
sure it's, because
Well,
they
with certain
know the
meds, yeah.
statin is slowly killing you. So they want to make sure it's slow enough to where your liver's not going, what happened? It's going, stop it. Stop poking me. Stop poking me. Stop poking me. And they'll just keep using it. So I think we need to just kind of be aware of what's going on, understand it, have a conversation, learn. This stuff that we're doing today and all this kind of stuff is really for self-awareness. The more you know about you and the more you know about how your body responds to the food you're eating, the things you're doing, the better you can make with choices that you want to do to be healthier. So, Claire, we're going to jump off because this was a longer session today. So we want to apologize for that. But listen, a lot of good info.
We got a
We will
late
work on
start.
being shorter and more concise. There's a lot of good information out there, and we want to make sure you got all of it. So thank you all for paying attention. Thank you guys for listening. If you have questions for us, of course, there's a number right there. That is Claire's actually personal number on there. Wow, Claire, nice. You can reach out to her personally, or you can call the office. But anyway, I'm going to stop the recording now. And thank you, Claire. Great job.
Thank you.